Hello everyone, it is I, the Witch of Paint, and this week I bring you a painting of this beautiful sunflower fairy in time for Lughnasadh, a traditional Irish and Gaelic holiday. And yes, I know that I already have a sunflower fairy that I painted for Líofa, but they both have some very similar colour schemes and symbolisms, so I decided this would be kind of like a sister to my Líofa fairy, hence why both of them are going to be having sunflower wings. In either case, my plan for this fairy is that she will be standing in a sunflower field surrounded by sunflowers and holding a basket of fresh fruit because Lughnasadh is one of the first harvest festivals of the Gaelic cycle, marking the beginning of the harvest season. It is celebrated usually on the 1st of August, and since, at least for when this video comes out, the 1st of August is overmorrow, I thought now would be a good time to paint this lovely fairy. Along with her basket, she will also be wearing a dress that is supposed to resemble a corn doll, which is frequently crafted during this time of year. And it's called a corn doll because you take dry leaves of the corn plant and tie them together to resemble a doll. This is kind of similar to the Bridget's dolls that are crafted during Imbolc, just made from a different material, I suppose. I put some braids into the dress since I've seen a lot of these dolls with the braids in their skirts, and I thought that was pretty. Sometimes their hair is also braided, but I decided to have hers in a sort of ponytail with a big red bow. Why red? I'm not sure, I just thought it would be a nice contrasting colour to give her a little bit of pop. Now, Lughnasadh is called like that because it celebrates the god Lugh, who is associated partially with war, but also craftsmanship, and in the case of his festival, in a way, fertility, growth, and, the beginning of the harvest. Though I do have to say that a lot of these festivals are basically just associated with fertility and growth and maybe some other things. At least the ones, in spring and summer are associated with that. And also light, obviously. But this time, light is playing less of a role because the focus is more on the harvest itself. Something I have found out only through researching Lughnasadh is that on the 31st of July in medieval Ireland, they used to have something called the Tailteann Games, although the dates are a little bit unclear about when exactly it started. It's just not very well known. So what is known is that the games were held during the 6th and 9th centuries AD. I don't know why they would have stopped, I don't know, maybe something else got in the way. But the Tailteann Games revolved around your typical long jump, high jump, running, hurling, sword fighting, a lot of sporty things. So it was basically kind of like Olympics, but not as widely spread as that, and for Irish people. Now, during the 19th century, there have been a few attempts at reviving these games, but they always had a lot of issues doing so. Like the Gaelic Athletic Associations, or GAAs, fundraising attempt with the weirdly named American Invasion, which was basically Irish athletes going on a sports tour in the northeast of America to raise awareness of the GAA and get some funds, but they didn't really succeed to raise the funds they were after, so that failed. In 1922, a revival scheme was approved, but it got delayed by the Irish Civil War, so it only took place in 1924. But it still took place, so that's something. This one and the games in 1928 attracted a lot of attention. They got some Olympic athletes in there, but then the main backer of the games, Minister James Joseph Walsh, lost power, public funding was cut, and in light of the Great Depression and the issues between England and Ireland, the 1932 games were held on a more low profile, so they weren't as widely advertised. It was a very small game, and after that, there were no further Tailteann Games held. It was suggested in 1985 to revive the games again in order to attract Irish tourism, though, to be fair, the games weren't revived, per se. There is a cycling race named after them, the Rás Tailteann, which is an annual cycling race held in June. The school interprovincial championships run by the Athletics Ireland are also named after the games, and so are the recently established Tailteann Cup and a GAA stadium in Navan called Park Tailteann. So, while the games are not held anymore, their name has been widely used for sports-related events across Ireland. What was I talking about? Oh, right, Lughnasadh. As fun as this Wikipedia rabbit hole was, let's come back and get right on track again, eh? There were many events held on this day, in particular offering the new fruit, eating the food made with the recently harvested crops, and bilberries, which, as I have discovered, is another name for European blueberries. The more you know, right? Then there would also be a bowl that gets sacrificed, and there's a sort of dance play depicting Lugh seizing the harvest and defeating the evil powers of blight, which is a plant disease that could very much ruin crops. All of these things would happen on top of the hills or mountains. And while there are some customs that still survive from this festival, like climbing a hill on the day. Now, of course, we have a Christian version of the holiday, kind of, which is called Lammas. And here I thought at first the two terms were sort of interchangeable, describing the same sort of festival, but that's not how it is. Even if both are celebrated at the same time and share some similar reasons for celebrating the harvest, Lammas is celebrated with more Christian things in mind. So, for example, you would bake a bread from the new crop and take it to your local church. There's also church processions to bakeries to bless the bakers for their hard work. And the reason why it's called Lammas is because of the bread itself. It's sometimes called Loafmas Day, and that's sort of where it eventually came from. So Loafmas eventually became Lammas in the end, because humans are lazy, okay? The Wikipedia page of it had a really delicious looking owl bread picture, which did get me a little bit hungry, but only a little bit. Now, just to be clear, I don't think the Christians stole the holiday, even if some of the customs, mainly, the bread baking and the celebrating of the beginning of the harvest, are similar to that of Lughnasadh. I'm sure there's lots of other harvest festivals around the world and cultures mix with each other, so, it might have just sort of happened. I'm not going to accuse Christians of stealing this holiday. They just have their own version of it, and that's completely fine. Now, let's stop talking about this very fun festival and talk a little bit about my painting. The sunflowers around her made me struggle so much, particularly the ones on the right. I was trying to make them the same height as the ones on the left, but somehow I didn't manage to do that at all. I don't know why, but that is how it is. Somehow. So the right hand side sunflowers are just slightly smaller than on the left, and I hope I'm the only one bothered by this. I probably am. The sunflowers are pretty though. The composition overall is nice, but the size difference of the flowers just grinds my gears in the wrong way, Anyways, I did not bother drawing neat lines for the leaves of the sunflowers. That would have taken way too long, and I wasn't up for another hour of inking a drawing that already took forever to sketch because I couldn't get the sunflower height right, which is why I basically squiggle around with the ink around the leaves, creating the shapes vaguely, and for any flowers in the background, I literally just draw a bunch of squiggles and call it a day. I wasn't about to ink out itty-bitty tiny sunflowers. That just wasn't on my to-do list that day. Now, since this one is a sister to my leaf fairy, she gets some similar wings, and her second wing made me struggle so much as well. I don't know why, but the way she was standing, I couldn't figure out where to put her left wing and in what perspective. In the end, I settled on what you can see now, but oh my goodness, what a struggle it was to get to that point. I don't know why I was struggling so much with the perspective. Well, not necessarily the perspective. For the wing, it was the perspective I was struggling with. For the sunflowers, it was literally trying to get the height right. Anyways, you can probably tell which colour palette I used for this, because I use it a lot. Yes, indeed, my trusty big Van Gogh watercolour palette. For the sunflowers, I mostly used the lemon yellow, yellow medium, and Indian yellow to get the different shades of yellow. And the sky, which was supposed to be blue, I painted using different mixes of phthalo blue, ultramarine, and a little bit of cerulean blue as well. That was still sort of on my palette from the last paintings I made. And thanks to me thinking about doing an underpainting first, the yellow of the wings mixed together with the blue of the sky, and it's turned green, and I should have definitely not done that all in one wet layer. But it's too late now, no going back. Now the sky is a bit green around her. Who cares, right? Some of the sunflower petals also turned a little green for the same reason, because I thought I could get the base colours down all in one single layer. I only noticed in hindsight that perhaps this was not a great idea. But either way, there was a lot of mixing of colours involved with this. The skin tone of the fairy was a mix of carmine, yellow ochre and burnt sienna, as I usually mix skin tones with that. The greens of the sunflower stems were done with hooker green, sap green, and a tiny little bit of indigo for the shadowy bits to get in some depth and make it look like there's more sunflowers behind there, and those squiggly lines are definitely something and not just squiggles, you know. And of course, I couldn't resist splattering my paint everywhere because it is so much fun to get your paint not just on the paper, but also across your hands, your arms, and your face. I hope I didn't say that too sarcastically. I do like splashing my paint around. It's a lot of fun. The bows are done in red, obviously, as you can see. I don't remember which red I used. It might have been carmine, it might have been the Madder Lake Deep, one of those two. I didn't remember to write that down, so whoops. In her basket, she's got some grains, obviously, and some fruit. I chose to put grapes and apples as something that was visible. The apples are red, the grapes I decided to go with green. The dress itself I painted in mostly yellow ochre, although on occasion some of the other colours that were also on the palette were mixed into it, and I also used some sepia to kind of do the shading on the dress itself, because this is made from corn leaves, so there's going to be different hues in there anyway. And also, of course, considering that there are going to be shadows cast by the arm that is holding the basket. The basket I painted in burnt sienna, and the shadows I did a little bit in sepia, and also tried to give it a slightly basket weave-like texture, because that's what I was going to go for with this basket. Honestly, one of the favourite things about this fairy, at least for me, is her dress. Mostly because of the braids that are in the skirt that are really, really cute with the tiny little bows on them. I'm kind of feeling like maybe I should have put a bow somewhere on the upper part of the dress as well to give it a little bit more something. Like, perhaps I could have put bows in the sleeves if I had changed up the style of the bodice a little bit from the wraparound style that I ended up putting there at the start. I could have done something with that. I could have put a bow at the waistband. That would have been fun, maybe. That's something to keep in mind for next time. What I was thinking with the hair was essentially that it would represent the brown part of a sunflower, so the wings are kind of just outside of that. I'm not sure if that even makes sense, what I just said, but that was my basic idea behind it, that the hair was the middle bit of the sunflower and the wings are just the petals, unlike what I did with my Leaf Fairy, where the middle bit of the sunflower was worked into the wings themselves. I'm not sure which style of wings I prefer, personally. Like, they both look very nice, but with both of them, either way, I would have had the issue of trying to kind of direct the petals in the correct position, the correct way, so that they wouldn't look weird in the end. You know what I mean? It's a little something. The wings were a bit of a struggle for both of the fairies. Anyways, we have reached the end of the video now, so if you don't mind joining me for the final result now. Look at this beautiful painting. I love everything about it. The fairy in a fun little dress, the braids in the skirt, her pose is nice. The flower wings are just gorgeous. The happy sunflowers facing her, and yes, that was my intention, to have the sunflowers on both sides face in her direction so that they would kind of direct you to look right at her rather than focusing on the sunflowers themselves. I know they should be facing towards wherever the sun is, but in this case, I throw signs overboard, and since I am an artist, I think I'm allowed to do that. Overall, a very nice painting, in my opinion. I will keep it with me for a long time, hopefully. Now, if you enjoyed watching me paint this, why not subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? Make sure you leave a like as well and comment something fun about other harvest festivals. Perhaps one that is celebrated where you are. Also, don't forget to check out my social media links and my Twitch account down below in the description, as well as all the sources, which unfortunately are all from Wikipedia this time because I went down a weird rabbit hole, but I have them all linked below anyways. For now, I am the Witch of Paint, and I shall see you all next Sunday. Enjoy your Lughnasadh. Bye! Oh, look who's made it to the end of the video. Well done to you. Have some wonderful outtakes as a reward. For Lughnasadh, a traditional Irish and Gaelic holiday. This is very similar to the Bridges. Now, Lughnasadh, not Lughnasadh, Lughnasadh, Come on, it's so simple. I can do this. Anyways, we have reached the end of the video.